Paul, I heard some fool say it was a bye week. It's not a bye week. It's week one of OU week. So that's how we're kind of doing it. And we're going to squeeze all the juice out of this one. Everyone, make sure to like and subscribe to the video and use promo code IT1 to get 2 months for only $1 single. I'm excited. So we are going to do basically week one of OU breakdown. But first, we are going to do quick Mississippi State thoughts. We're going to use Paul's post-mortem. He's going to tell you what he saw versus Mississippi State. Then we're going to do Oklahoma offense, Oklahoma defense, and SC games of interest. SEC games this week are a little weaker, but Paul always has interesting insight. And the weeks that we think are not going to be that cool generally surprise us. So, Paul, good to see you. Let us begin. So let's talk Mississippi State or the Texas offense versus Mississippi State. What would you grab from that matchup?
A little inconsistency, to put it mildly. And I thought Arch Manning was obviously incredible. He was absolutely phenomenal. He was great watching it live on the rewatch. It was even more impressive, the balls he was throwing. Very judicious going downfield, Connor. He was not the mad bomber. He was the effective bomber. So 3 of 4 for 2 touchdowns. I think we know what that 1 out of 4 miss was down the field. That was Jonte Cook dropping a wide open touchdown that would have gone for 60+ yards and a touchdown. So on his 4 attempts, Arch Manning should have had 3 touchdowns on throws 20+. I think the most interesting innovation was between the hashes, 0 yards to 20. He was something like 13 of 14 and just dealing. I mean, he that's where Quinn Ewers usually cooks. But Arch asked for some recipes, and they decided to have a bake-off. So that was impressive. A lot of penalties, 2 turnovers that were killers. Jaden Blue really hurt the team. Didn't run very well overall. He was sort of tiptoeing on all of his runs beyond the fumbles, and that's not great. They made a change at running back, and that was very energizing to the running game in the second half. And then they just stopped committing penalties. They had 7 penalties on offense, 6 by the O-line and Gunnar Helm. Helm had 2. 2 or 3 of the penalties were sort of like, I don't know about that. But the rest were well-earned. And, Texas obviously has to clean that up. And, hey, if we're subject to a slow start, the officials are human beings, and they tend to reward the underdog who's playing aggressively. So you've got to keep that in mind for Dallas. So you tend to get the whistles if you're the more aggressive team, if you're bringing it, and the officials, get excited. They would decide they want to participate in the game. Yeah. So I thought that was the main thing on offense. The main thing was switching out running back, getting that going in the second half. Texas ran the ball extremely well in the second half, and then Arch Manning was just consistently great. So if you told me before the game, Texas underperforms and they're a little slow on offense and they score 35, I'd have said, oh man, did Arch struggle again a little? No, not at all. And in fact, from a yardage perspective, 8.4 yards per play, over 500 yards, got ball controlled a little bit. And a little bit of that is on the offense, not possessing the ball and turning it over, but also a little bit of that's on the defense, obviously. We'll talk about that.
He should have a rushing touchdown. They stole that from him. So it was multifaceted. He was able to go off on that run towards the pylon that he should have got. Then he scored again on a QB sneak that he should have got. I thought it was an awesome performance. Anytime you're 80% plus in completion percentage, sheesh. And I thought our wide receivers, minus the Cook drop, did awesome, man. That's what you want to see before OU. When we talk OU, you're going to see that our wide receiver matchup is going to give us the biggest advantage.
Yeah, Arch had a batted ball and 2 drops. So I think he only had 2 true incompletions, one of them on a 4th down. Yeah. So not a bad performance at all from Mr. Manning. And it's kind of nice in the big picture. If you pull back way back, it's kind of nice that he's gotten some starts under his belt. And it's not his first start won't be in Columbus.
It's also kind of crazy that in the post game, he knows he's going back in the box, and so he's like, that was fun, and now I have to wait for the rest of the year, which is so weird to like see that level of performance and be like, all right, get back on the bench. We need Quinn in. It's we're lucky. We're in a great spot. I'm super excited to see Quinn, but can you imagine the Heisman hype next year for Arch? It's going to be absolutely absurd.
You think there'll be any?
Yeah, I'm sure they will not take advantage of that name to put him at the top of the odds. Who do y'all think OU is going to have perform at halftime for their Super Bowl? I don't know.
Toby Keith still around?
Is he? I don't know the country singer that. Who's the country singer they lost? Was it Toby Keith? I don't listen to country, so I apologize.
No, maybe they did lose Toby Keith. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I don't
Hold
know.
on.
They
yeah,
he passed.
He's passed. Sorry.
Rest in peace, Toby. But I don't know who they would have. They kind of struggled on game day trying to find a country guy. So they had to. Who else did they bring in? Another country singer.
They have to manufacture their celebrities sometimes. Are Kings of Leon OU fans? I think they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah. That's yeah, we'll have to see with OU. There's not a ton of options, not a very big state.
Appreciate the super chat.
Yeah, thank you, Sugar Daddy. Hawkins versus Van Buren. Can we learn anything from Mississippi State game we can use versus OU? Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, don't let them run. And then we were doing the 3-2 box thing. That was interesting, which is, trying to go up against the Veer. And if you're watching, what I always think is really interesting is, so Venables, his offensive coordinator, Lebby, had the veer and shoot. When they play Tennessee, that's a veer and shoot offense as well, right? So I think it's always illuminating to see what a defensive coordinator does when his offensive coordinator ran that offense. Does that make sense? So if you watch how he played against Tennessee, same thing, 3-2 box. So Venables knows that offense very well. It was his offense and still his offense. And he kind of shows you how to play him versus Tennessee. And I thought Texas did a lot of that too, which I thought was interesting. So yeah, what we can learn is don't let them run. Don't let them get that cheap draw down in the red zone. Stay in your rushing lanes. Don't over pursue. So stuff like that, stop your rush. If you start to go past QB depth, that'll be valuable. Hawkins is a single read guy. We'll talk about him here shortly when we do, but
I thought the only real issue I had with the defense was look, we clearly were coming in with trying to have a complementary strategy, which was let's put up a bunch of points early, and then that will force Mississippi State into predictable passing, and then we'll be at an advantage. We weren't able to do that, and the defense kind of got nickeled and dimed in the running game.
Nope.
And I think the only real issue I have with that is that they were 45% on money down conversions, and almost all of them were runs. So I think you had the stat that 6 out of 7.
Yeah, they got a bunch of the power runs.
Yeah, their power runs were all effective. And so, the key to sort of really effective bend but don't break, for lack of a better term, is you give up 5 on first down, you give up a 3-yard run on second down, and now it's 3rd and 2, and then you get big and strong in the box, and then you hold them, and then they have to punt, and that's when you're really effective with that strategy. Also, you can't give up that cheap quarterback draw that you talked about in the red zone. That kind of stuff is really important. And that's the difference between 3s and 6s, right? And that has a material impact on the score, the pace of the game, momentum, all that kind of stuff. The more OU can get that kind of stuff, the more they can stay in the game and foster some belief. And it's important that the Texas staff come up with a game plan that brings some aggression. Doesn't have to be every down, but on key downs, you've got to find some ways to shut them down and tell Hawkins, hey, we don't think your receivers are that great. We're not sure you can throw a great ball in a tight situation. So, hey, prove it. I don't think we need to play him with this respect like he's a 6-year veteran.
Yeah, that people are not talking about this as a true freshman going into Red River. Like I haven't heard that once, that he's just gonna be able to walk in there. That's a tough environment. And I was rewatching that Auburn OU game, and he's a single read. I mean, he's half a read and run.
Yeah.
So, so it's like he'll glance, and if he sees another jersey near it, he's gonna run. Yep. So the spy or whatever we do will be important. Are y'all worried about Oklahoma's defense? We will talk about that whenever we break down their defense. But yes, their defense is far better than their offense. All right. Rover, defensive player following Hawkins throughout the game. Also more man-to-man in secondary, considering we should put some pocket pressure on him. So with Hawkins, as soon as you start spying, you force yourself into man. And so I think you spy him on third down.
Yep.
But other than that, no, make him play quarterback. If he wants to run around, I think we're kind of scarred from Dylan Gabriel running around successfully, but that's not an effective offensive tool to just be running with your head cut off. I mean, he might get some explosives, but that doesn't make an offense efficient in any way, shape, or form. All right, let's go Mississippi State. What did you think of Texas? You got the defense. You didn't like the run. Us getting gashed in the run. What did you think about us getting beat a couple times by like a Craver when they were able to get it behind us a couple times? Or Mosley versus Manny.
Manny Muhammad got smoked, notably, one time. I think he did get the receiver off his line, and so I think that helped foster the incompletion. Also, a little pressure did as well. And then Gavin Holmes got hit for a 43-yarder. Great throw. Good route and a great throw. Makuba was over. He came over in time, and the guy just put it right in the only little window.
Yeah, I don't put that on either DB there. That was just an awesome throw. I mean, they pointed it exactly. Safety and corner collided. I mean, it was sometimes other teams make plays too, and that's what I chalk it up to on that one. So I'm not mad about that one, but they were targeting Holmes a couple times, which was interesting. I think we're good. You good on Mississippi State? You ready to go to the?
I think we got a super chat. Do you want to?
Oh yeah, we got.
Or...
No, we're good.
Okay.
What kind of wrinkles should we be expecting? What have they been holding back, you think?
I think this is the they us, or is the they
OU? I think. Okay. But clarify, Sugar Daddy, in the chat.
What have they been holding back? So OU on defense has been holding back a bunch of crazy packages and Venables stuff. They're going to move around a ton before the snap. They're going to do all sorts of stuff. They're going to show one thing and drop into another. Classic Venables stuff. I'm sure OU has been working on signals, specifically ours. So we'll need to change up all of our signals and also rely on the headsets a little bit in this game. I mean, look, that's the main place where they can do a bunch of wrinkles on offense. Look, they saw some things probably from ULM and Mississippi State where they're going to double our play side tackle and they're going to bring numbers and run the quarterback. And it's up to our linebackers to go make a play. When you're the Mike linebacker like Anthony Hill and you see your play side defensive tackle doubled, you got to fire. You can't stand there. You can't sit and wait, and you got to bring it. And Benda and Hill can both improve in that regard. And I think they're going to spend 2 weeks repeatedly drilling that over and over and over. And I also think we're going to bring some stuff for our own defense, like in terms of numbers and things like that. And so, some of those situations where we're not just going to let OU run the ball with impunity whenever they want. So I think that'll be interesting. Also, their offensive line's not that great. So, that's something that they're gonna certainly work on. And then, the main thing is just being really sound and showing different looks. I mean, we've got a high IQ defensive backfield. Mm-hmm. Taft, Makuba, Barron, Muhammad. These are guys that you can try stuff with. So I want to show Hawkins things right before the snap, and then I want something very different to happen when the ball is snapped. And I think and
scramble.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what he's going to run. And so, that doesn't mean that you have to spy every time a quarterback can run a little. You don't have to assign a permanent spy. You can rush to contain. You can blitz to contain. So, there's different methodologies that you can use to handle that kind of quarterback. He's not the first running quarterback in the history of college football.
What was it? Was it Tosh Lupoy that was like, we love running quarterbacks because if we scheme it right, we know exactly where they're going to scramble to.
Yeah.
So what you do is you run certain gaps and you say, hey, we're leaving the B gap kind of open. Hawkins is going to see the B gap and go, oh, it's wide open. And we know to converge on him there. So there's ways to actually corral these quarterbacks to where they're giving the illusion that they're scrambling, but really you're guiding them into safeties and linebackers. So, and then need to put hats on Hawkins. this kid, if he keeps doing those end zone flip 9 times in the air things, I mean, you got to give it to him. Kid has absolute heart, but dumb. You know, there's multiple games where he's just spinning through the air in the red zone, and that's going to get you Jackson Arnold back quick. Any thoughts on the Gabe Eichert comment that you should attack Anthony Hill because he's the worst player in the front seven? So we talked about this last night on Monday Night Live. Ian, myself, Nick, and Joe agreed with the worst player in the front seven. Here's the couch. Gabe Eichert is a center. He's looking at linebackers in a very specific way and assignment soundness. I haven't watched Anthony Hill every snap, but there is some issues with assignment soundness. And if you look at the other guys, it's not really a front seven. It's truly a front six. But you look at Trey Moore, 4th year plus, Broughton, 4th years plus, Collins, 4th year plus, Sorrell, 4th years plus, Benda, 4th years plus. So it's not that surprising that the true sophomore might be the least assignment sound. But Paul, what do you think? I think how he phrased it was just attack 0. He's the worst player. And Anthony isn't an NFL talent. It's just, but do you think he's the least assignment sound of that starting kind of 6?
I mean, so that's debatable with him and Benda, because sometimes Benda just takes off running in the wrong direction. But I mean, I broke it down in my postmortem. I thought that was Anthony Hill's worst game that I can recall at linebacker. They exploited him both in the passing game a little bit. They targeted him, I think, 4 times and had 3 completions, one of them for a long 3rd down conversion where Hill took a bad angle in pass coverage. And then that same dynamic that I talked about, every single Mississippi State run play, almost without exception, they doubled the play side defensive tackle. And Hill has to fire on that. That is like automatic. And
he's trying to stay behind and dance and wait for the guy to come to him.
Well, you got to
fill your gap.
You're just waiting to, you know, because sometimes you can run to a gap too quickly, and the running back cuts over and wrong gaps you and stuff like that. But the gaps, the way it works on the field, if you have honest numbers, if your play side defensive tackle gets doubled, you know exactly what you have to fill and where you need to be. Also, the play side edge needs to, you know, work himself down and not run upfield. But that was the main issue. So from Gabe's perspective, he was not incorrect, but he's also speaking from a specific assignment. You know, that's what he saw. That flashed to him the minute he turned on that film as a guy who knows football, right? And is a former NFL offensive lineman. However, the advantage of Hill is he's a very good blitzer. He's great in the open field. He's a, you know, athletic.
Smack you.
He'll smack you. He's an athletic pass defender. So, you know, are they going to attack Anthony Hill and his assignment soundness? Yeah, that is going to happen. Guaranteed. So in that narrow perspective, Gabe Eichert is correct.
Yeah. The fans do not like it whenever it's 2 days we've had to be like, Gabe Eichert's making sense. And the fans are like, no.
But
you guys got to, I mean, he's offensive lineman. He knows better than us guys about.
Yeah. And look, he's got some Homer in him. No, not Texas Homer.
Yeah,
but
I can't relate, but
he's got some OU Homer in him. That's for sure. But also he's a guy that actually, if you've listened to him or whatever, he knows ball. So,
yeah. All right. But no, Anthony Hill is not a bad player. That's not what we're saying, guys. We will see him in the NFL shortly. We're all good. All right. Let's pull up Oklahoma's numbers.
They're disgusting.
Right. Yeah, they're sickening. All right, guys. Let me zoom this to where it looks a little better. And over the bye week, I'm going to try to make these prettier for y'all. These were always just my numbers for my breakdown, but I'll try to make them a little more aesthetically pleasing than just a spreadsheet going forward.
And again, you just make these up.
These are totally made up. Yeah, it's just kind of how I'm feeling that day. And I'm like, it feels like a 62 ranked points per game.
Yep.
But so here we go. What you'll notice is the Oklahoma offense really bad. And I know the argument will be, well, that was because when Jackson was in. Nope, still really bad with Hawkins. There's a coordinator problem going on there too, guys. It's not purely a personnel issue that's occurring with them. So 62nd in points per game, they're able to do that. You're going to see through explosiveness. So they have no consistency, but a couple times a game, they're going to get a run or they're going to get a like the Auburn deep ball that Hawkins hit. They're going to get something like that. And they're going to always get good field position because of their defense. And whenever your head coach is a defensive coordinator, it's going to be a field position focused team. And OU's defense consistently puts the offense in good positions. And so you're going to see that. So plays per game, 81st, not running a lot, not able to stay on the field that often. 114th in the country in yards per play. I don't care about total yards, but a lot of people do. 109th in total yards. Offensive points per drive, 84th. Success rate, how successful are they able to move the ball forward consistently? So just think consistency here. One of the least consistent offenses in the country, 127th. They make up for it occasionally with 3 or 4 big plays a game, 23rd in the nation overall in explosiveness. But they do face a lot of havoc, right? So a lot of sacks, a lot of batted balls, a lot of fumbles, that kind of stuff. So you can interfere with their offense. They make a lot of mistakes on offense as well. Anything that sticks out here, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, yards per play, it sort of screams to me, particularly given that they have some explosiveness, meaning they are popping 50 and 60-yard gains couple 3 times a game, but every other play is 0 or negative. I mean, it's pretty fruitless. So, yeah. Man, it's eye-opening. And it's eye-opening to look at their box score against Auburn. Auburn outgained them by like 190 yards. And I mean, just really dominated the game, threw the ball, which we're about to cover in a moment, surprisingly well against Oklahoma, particularly isolating. My dog just knocked something off.
I was gonna say.
Particularly isolating and picking on the OU corners, who I think Venables has been hiding a little bit in the scheme. So interesting.
Yeah. Hey, Ed, we literally started pulling up this spreadsheet like 2 minutes ago. I promise you we will give the context of injuries for the team. Actually, OU's not injured at all. This is all of their first-line starters, and they're doing great. But yeah, the wide receivers injuries there. Whenever we get to passing offense, we'll discuss that. All right, rushing offense for OU. Rushing plays rate, they're rushing about 50% of the time, so good balance there, right? Yards per rush, not good. 93rd in the nation. Rushing yards per game, if you care about it, 89th. Rushing success rate, 123rd. So not able to get positive yards consistently, getting stuffed. What does that mean on early downs? Well, you're going to be in trouble, and you're in 3rd and 7s, 3rd and 8s with a bad, poorly coordinated offense and inexperienced quarterbacks. And all your wide receivers are out. So not a good situation when you can't run and you're dealing with that problems in the passing offense. Offensive line yards, offensive line struggling to run block, 99th in the country. Rushing power success rate on those dirty yards, 3rd and short, 4th and short, 103rd in the country. Their only saving grace, they can get loose. So 10th in rushing explosivity. So as long as you just – here's the thing. You can absorb 3 or 4 big OU plays in the game. Even if that results in 28 points, Texas is going to put up more than 28. You just can't let them be consistent. I mean, I'm okay. You're going to let some explosives go. That's what the offense does here. You're not going to be able to just totally can it. It's just, can you absorb 4 60-yard plays and still be up by 14, that kind of thing. But be aware from rushing explosivity. That's where they can get you. What have you observed from the running game, from Tennessee, from Auburn, all that?
I mean, OU has a good run defense, and a lot of that is just schematic. Stutzman does a really good job, and they definitely coach it. They coach physicality, and they just do a good job. They're pretty, I think, from what I've observed, I haven't even looked at the stats. They seem like pretty decent tackling defense, which they weren't necessarily early in Venables' tenure. And I think some of that had to do with the players, and they had to coach them up a little bit. But, look, the Tennessee game was basically, hey, we're giving up some stuff. When I'm speaking from the Tennessee perspective, when their 2 offensive tackles went down, they were like, hey, we're giving up some easy pressures. Nico is fumbling the ball. We are completely dominating their offense. We've already got our points on the board. Let's just run the ball and go home. And that's what they did.
Yeah. And before we dive into the Oklahoma passing offense, let us hear a word from our sponsor.
Hi, I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512 or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. Just, give her a call at 512-784-0505. Her email is in the description as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call.
All right. Passing offense. Also, not good. So 106 in the country in yards per pass, 107th in pass yards per game, 124th in passing success rate. And this is just positive EPA. It's not like situational. This is just like making the ball go forward. And then passing explosivity, 68th. So average in passing explosivity. So and you saw that with Hawkins, right? Like they really do nothing downfield, and then he hits like a 60-yarder. And it's the reason why they're able to hit these explosive plays is because they're so bad. The teams get lulled to sleep. They don't see it coming. Corners are bored. If they were even kind of like mid-tier in success rate, they would lose their explosivity because it only comes from like, oh, wow, they actually hit that. Who thought that was going to happen? So, and that was Hawkins as well. This is not all Jackson Arnold. Hawkins hasn't shown in the Auburn game that he's a special passer either.
So big issue here. Deion Burks, the slot receiver, the transfer from Purdue, one of the two impact guys that Purdue lost to SEC teams, Texas rivals, other than me and Nick Scourton. Poor Purdue is not very good this year, Connor. But Burks is out. That's their best and most reliable player. He's in the slot. That's usually the best friend for a young quarterback in a big rivalry game. Get that guy closest to the quarterback and have him run some quick routes and get some confidence completions. Looks like he may be out. We're not sure. Nick Anderson has been out. He tried to go against Tennessee, played 9 plays, and then he pulled himself out. Andrew Anthony had that injury last year. He's been slow in recovering, coming back. Basically, it's just been a nightmare for them at the receiver position, and it shows. They also, again, Jackson Arnold, no friend to the passing offense in terms of its decision making and timeliness, but there's bigger stuff going on. Schematically, not good. They had some real issues. Joel Klatt just hammered them after that Tennessee game. If you guys listened to him and his commentary, he was just basically saying the schemes are bad in several instances. Yeah. Offensive line, bad except for one guy. They've got a tackle who's played well, the USC transfer. He's the exception. Yeah. And then someone was mentioning, our number one running back is out and all that. Actually, I don't think unless you're talking about Taylor Tatum, who's a true freshman, who I think probably the coaches would like to be the number one running back. The other guys have been Jags. Gavin Sawchuk has showed good stuff in the past, but he's been terrible this year. Javonte Barnes is a Jag. He's just a guy that you hand the ball off to, and he runs hard. And
he has a stiff running style. He's very mechanical. How
he just runs forward, and if the play's blocked for 6, he'll get you 6. He's not going to fumble. And then in terms of receiving options, Brennan Thompson and Jaquez Petaway have been their two other guys now. And what you notice is that OU's really small at receiver right now. So
they try to balance it out with Hester because he's like 6'4", 203. And
and that guy's just been a complete disappointment. So I just think they're really small. Michael Tarkin is the left tackle that's actually played well for them, and he's sort of the exception on their offensive line. But they're really small at wide receiver. So what does that mean? Well, for one, you can reroute them. So if you want to press them and get your hands up on them, these are guys that you can control and reroute. Bauer Sharp has been a receiving threat. He is not a blocking threat. I can tell you that after watching that guy's tape.
Surprising me that OU's taken players from Southeast Louisiana.
I mean, whatever. I mean, there's you find dudes who are good from every level, but
I don't know about that from Southeast Louisiana because he was a quarterback, right?
He was a former quarterback, but I mean, there's guys that have leveled up from small universities that have done well in the transfer portal. It's an individual talent issue. I don't think he's not Colston Loveland or anything, but yeah, I mean, it's a little bit, if it's not a mess, it'll do until the mess gets here. So the question is, can they, sooner magic their way into a bunch of offense? And to me, my instinct is like, attack them, like bring it. Don't be passive. Texas has not blitzed very much this year. I think that's by design. I think they're saving stuff for these big games coming up. And I think they need to vary their looks. I mean, again, we've got a high IQ secondary. This isn't like last year where if we try some stuff, these guys are just going to blow the assignments. Yeah, these are guys that can process. They can move before the snap. They can shift from cover 3 to cover 1 right at the snap of the ball. And stuff like that in a game where you got a bunch of adrenaline as a young quarterback, man, that's really disconcerting to have one look. And then as you drop back, you realize what you thought and where you thought you were going with the ball has completely changed. And as Connor said, now it's time to run, baby. It's time to make something happen. And so then it's on Texas to be disciplined in their rush lanes and get that guy down on the ground.
Especially psychologically, right? Say that Anderson and Burks are out, which, by the way, if that's what OU Insider's saying, that's what I'm hearing as well.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes. So that's, for a young quarterback, man, in the Red River and all of your dudes are out, man. Like, sheesh. And you don't have a running game. I mean, what do you turn to? He's only going to know to run. I mean, I can't even really evaluate Hawkins in that situation. Like I said, I don't like his offense. Joel Klatt, I was like, maybe Joel's being kind of dramatic. And so I watched more with a fine tooth comb. I was like, man, this offense is boring, uninventive. The receivers are plastered. Like, they're completely covered. There's nothing to do. They're going to have a new offensive coordinator soon.
Well, I will say that they changed a bunch of stuff from Tennessee till Auburn. They got rid of some of the most egregious stuff, like some of the weird trick plays and the multi reads. I mean,
they're trying to get less RPOs, right?
Well, it was also very clear that Jackson Arnold doesn't process real fast.
No, he doesn't.
And doesn't. I think like on a lot of the option kind of plays, whether it was a pass option or a run option, I think he's just guessing. I don't think he actually sees what's happening. And I think Hawkins seems to be a more instinctive player. At least
you remember the first play of the game versus Tennessee where Jackson Arnold, the back is lined up on the wrong side. They run counter and the back runs into the quarterback and they drop the ball. I was just like, as a quarterback, man, you have to know.
I mean, how many times have you seen Quinn Ewers when he's gotten some experience right before the snap, he looks at a receiver and points at him and goes,
yeah, exactly.
Go over there, idiot. What are you doing? And
but you don't even know which way the ball, like they're running left, and so it's like you have
to have a broader command of the offense.
Yeah, and he doesn't. So that's gonna be tricky. So overall, this is what's interesting with them, right? Advanced stat wise, 47th. And I think that's gonna have to do with they're actually pretty good in the red zone. Once they get down there, they've actually been kind of effective. Everything else, no. But that's what I'm saying. If you can stop or you can not even stop, if you can absorb those 3 drives a game where it's like, oh, this looks like an actual good offense, you're going to be fine. So they can score in the red zone, that kind of stuff. But if we look at like standard down rate, they're constantly ending up in passing downs because they can't run on early downs and they're not executing on early downs. So one of the worst teams at having standard downs, you want to always have standard. If you could have 100% standard downs, you would as an offense. So 116th in the nation there. Their success rate on those standard downs is 126 in the nation. Passing downs rate, they're having to face a ton of them because they're getting stuck behind the sticks. And when they are in those third and longs, they're 120th in being successful. And that'll show you right there on their third down percentage, 122nd in the nation. So they're able on those little fourth downs, 4th and 1s, when it's time to go for it, they can do it. And when they actually do get in the red zone, often due to their defense, more than their offense, they're able to score. But it's just a hyper inefficient offense. They have coordinator problems. They have incredible injury problems. They have young quarterback. I mean, there's really nothing here that you can say beyond like a Texas defensive meltdown or some like inspired, incredible performance. There's not a lot of routes here to an OU offensive win.
One thing that I will say that is outstanding for OU this year so far, they have forced a lot of turnovers.
Yeah, the defense. Yeah.
So do you attribute that to the defense, the quality of the players, the scheme, or is there just some ineptitude in the offenses that they faced, or
No, I
a
think it's
combination
Venables.
thereof?
Yeah, I think it's Venables. I think in that natural disguise, they're hyper whenever they do want to send the house, that kind of stuff. I think most of their and they've had success in this with sacks and interceptions for Venables for forever. So it's not a pure talent thing. I think he's a good coordinator, and he puts a lot of stress on quarterbacks. And Nico didn't look like a world beater either. So I think it's Venables. They have players too. We'll see when we talk defense. I'm not minimizing that. I think they have a really good coordinator. It's kind of like, does Sark score because of his talent or his coordination? It's like it's both. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that sounds right. I think a lot of those turnovers are forced by the defense and their scheme and the players, and they're taught to attack the ball. Like you'll notice OU players will try to hold up runners and receivers and punch the ball, right? And guys come and try to do that too. Sometimes that can lead to a longer gain. A guy can score it out, but they're trying to get the ball, and they understand the kind of offense they have, and they've got some urgency on defense of like, we've got to try to win this game. So,
and they know that, right? They know the offense isn't going to win them the game. And there was some frustration I heard too from the OU defense talking to the OU offense of like, hey guys, help us out. So this is, the OU defense, that's absolutely the strength. You're about to see a lot more green, right? When we're coming down this way.
Yep.
But what you'll notice is their passing defense is where they'll be exploited by Texas. So let's look at total defense. 16th in the country in opponent points per game. Good stuff. We don't care about plays per game. I mean, they're facing a ton, so they're going to get tired eventually, right? Because their offense can't stay on the field. So if Texas can convert or keep 3-and-outing Hawkins in them, I mean, then if you're running 70, your defense is seeing 75 plays a game. Every game average, that's a lot. So you can tire them out. Opponent yards per play, they're doing a good job keeping a cap on that. 25th in the nation. D points per drive, really good. 10th in the nation. Success rate, they're not letting offenses be consistent. 28th in the nation. They're keeping a cap on the explosive plays as well, generally. 38th in the nation. And then havoc generating, the sacks, the interceptions, that kind of stuff. 32nd in the nation. So what's kind of what do you see bird's eye view? We'll break individually what the rushing defense and passing does, but just kind of holistically, what do you think of their defensive output?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good defense. I think so. Someone made a mention in the chat early that OU has a better defense than Michigan. Personnel-wise, no. Coaching-wise, yeah. So, I mean, Venables is a better defensive coach at the college level than Martindale. Yeah. And I think that's pretty clear. I don't think so. I mean, it's interesting because the strengths of their defense are different from what you typically see. Their strengths of their defense are safety and linebacker. But their defensive line is fine. They're not bad. They're not good. They're better than last year. They're certainly better than Venables' first year at OU. And then the corners, they're Jags. OU's trying to hide those guys. And they do a good job because Peyton Bowen covers so much ground, and Spears Jennings has done a good job. Yep. I've seen Billy Bowman obviously in there quite a bit, doing a good job as well. But
Kenai Walker, however you say it, is a liability.
Yeah, and then they lost their cheetah, which is what they call their nickel, basically. Yeah. And they kind of go either big nickel or small nickel. And Kendall Dolby had convinced them to go small nickel. Yeah. And he was probably their third best defensive player, honestly, or at least how he was playing. I'm just saying, like on the field. And they lost him for the season. That was a blow. And I just think if you're weak at nickel and both corner spots, I just think Sark is going to have something for you if you can block him up front and block that blitz. So I repeatedly saw Peyton Thorne hitting those OU corners 28, 35, 41, like big explosive passing plays. Peyton Thorne threw for over 300 yards if y'all didn't watch that game. And he only had that one horrific pick six that basically turned the game, decided the game. But I just think that we're going to focus in on those corners. And Woody Washington is a guy OU fans like to talk about. He's like a 6-year player. or a fifth-year player, I'm not sure which. If you're a fifth or sixth-year player at corner in college football, it means you're not great.
Right.
Because the
That's
NFL
a prized position. Yeah.
Yeah, the NFL is cornerback starved.
Right.
And so they will overdraft the cornerback, just like the quarterback position.
Yeah.
And Woody Washington is just not a great natural corner. They also lost his opposite, Gentry. So they've got another corner on the other side. He's just a jag. There's nothing special about him.
Yeah, Auburn caught that fade on Des Malone.
He's the transfer from San Diego State. He's a good tackler, but if you get him in space running around, you'll see his issues quickly. So I just think corner. That's where Sark is going to notice stuff on film, and then the linebackers and safeties for OU do a great job. So interesting defense because they're not like the typical makeup of dominance so that you see of a college defense. And they're not a dominant unit. They're just a good unit that plays well together.
Yeah. I like their edges though. We'll talk about them in a second. Before we keep going, Paul, I think there's somebody you want to mention.
Yeah, you need an edge when you take out a mortgage on your house. The guy to call is Gabe Winslow. You can reach him at 832-557-1095. Why would you call Gabe? Well, 20 years in the industry on all sides of the industry. He used to also run a title company. He's also really smart, really sharp guy, former National Merit Scholar. He's got a law degree from a top 20 law school. Why is he doing mortgages? Well, he kicks butt at it for one thing. And second, he loves helping people get in the house. So if you bought a house in the last 20 months and you are subject to those higher rates that everyone is because the interest rates were up, he wants to refi you, and he wants to refi you for free. Give him a call, 832-557-1095. Tell him that Texas Homer sent you and that OU sucks. And he will stop everything and do everything in his world to help you get in the house or refi your house at a much better rate for free. Great dude, great Longhorn, huge supporter of Inside Texas. Give him a call.
All right. Russian defense. This is where OU is strongest.
Yes.
So they're really good here. So opponent yards per rush, 9th in the nation. Opponent rushing yards per game, 22nd in the nation. Defensive rushing success rate, 6th in the nation. And also, this is OU's aggression. They love to run blitz, and so they'll do all this stuff where they'll fire linebackers straight into the run play. So they get a lot of stops, man. Like they can hit you behind the line. Stutzman has that knack for it, man. He can move through offensive guards and centers. He's really impressive there.
He's great at navigating traffic. He doesn't get caught in trash.
Yeah.
And he has great instincts. I mean, he understands where the ball is going from the blocking. And so if you're looking for like the contrast to Anthony Hill, that's where Stutzman is an A+ and Hill is a C-, right? Yeah. In terms of overall athleticism and all that kind of stuff, it's Anthony Hill in spades. But that's where, from an assignment perspective, Stutzman is very helpful to your defense.
They also had this one play, I think it was Auburn, but they had the camera behind Thorne, and you could just see Stutzman like on a flat plane, and you could see him just looking. I'm like, that's an intimidating guy, man. Like he's just how he's staring. He wouldn't be fun to have across the line from you. And he'll blow up the play correctly. So he'll blow up the play, not even to make it, to route the back exactly where the other linebacker is going to be.
Yep.
So that's what we mean by assignment sound too. He knows what he's looking at. Stutzman's a great player. Defensive line yards are able to stop opposing offensive lines pretty well. They're average in rushing power success rate. So they're short yardage, kind of middle of the pack there, a little bit above average, but not as good as you would think. And then they limit explosive runs. And you'll see that, man. Like the safeties and linebackers just converge on the line. That's also why they get in so much trouble in the pass game, because they do not want to let the run happen. So they'll pretty much all step into the line. And then if it's a play action or whatever, then you're going to end up in man and you're going to beat Walker deep. But they clearly have been given the directive to not let teams run on them. Think anything?
Nope. You nailed it.
Cool.
Passing.
Here we go. This is where Texas wins the game. So what do you think, Paul?
I mean, the thing that leaps out, opponents' yards per pass, 8.2 yards per attempt, way too high. And they've played teams like Houston, which has horrific offense, a horrific passing game. not intimidated by any dude with highlights in his hair. Agreed, Quentin. I like that.
Well, they only fear God, and we fear God and Oklahoma.
No, I don't want to hear that. That's propaganda. All right,
Yeah,
but
shirts.
they haven't faced incredible passing attacks exactly, and they're giving up big chunk plays. Not only in terms of explosivity, but you can consistently throw the ball. So I just think, again, if you can take away that withering pressure with offensive line competence and some good play calling, there's going to be plenty of opportunity to eat against their nickel and against their two corners. And we've got enough receivers. Again, this was the Michigan dilemma, right? They're like, we got Will Johnson. And Texas is like, cool, we won't target him. And whoever he covers is lost for the play. We'll throw it to the other four guys. And that's the real issue that OU has, is Woody Washington is going to be matched up on Matthew Golden or Isaiah Bond or Ryan Wingo. And none of those are winning matchups. DeAndre Moore on their new slot, on their new nickel. It's not a winning matchup. When we put Bond in the slot, which we do, that's not a winning matchup. So if Billy Bowman is doing a great job in the middle of the field, we're gonna throw to the sidelines, and Quinn Ewers is gonna feather in those 18-yard intermediate outs. So I just think that this is all about blocking them up front. If you can do that, Quinn Ewers is gonna throw for a bunch of yards.
Yeah, it's that's a nightmare in a matchup for them. And like we said, Auburn was able to throw it. They give up explosives. What makes OU great is their aggressiveness and their disguise, but really their aggressiveness. But your greatest strength is always your greatest weakness. They're over aggressive.
Good on the situational defense. What's their red zone defense like? I suspect it's good.
So red zone defense, 48th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so not crazy. They're able to do standard downs rate. They're good there. Passing downs rate, good. You want more passing downs. They're able to get a good amount of those. Third down D, good. Fourth down D, 85th. I'm not super obsessed with fourth down D. There's so few in a game. There's one or two opportunities.
There's no data set.
Yeah.
I just combine the two and call it money downs.
Yeah. It's I don't get a lot from fourth down unless it's like a very weird, like they're first in the nation or last. That's the only time I'm kind of paying attention to it. Red zone's 48th. Like you said, I would assume that it would be higher, but it's not. Sacks per game, 5th in the nation. So that's why their pass rush I like. So R. Mason Thomas, good player. Trace Ford, good
He's
player.
interesting because R. Mason Thomas is the guy that Sooner fans have been waiting for and talking about forever, of like, oh, this R. Mason Thomas guy. This has been like for 2 years. Yeah. He's flashing in practice, and I think he finally sort of grew into his abilities. So interesting.
Yeah, I want to see where he's at. I was kind of looking at them. So this is Trace Ford. But he has 6 sacks on the season, which is first in the SEC.
Yep.
So he's doing his thing.
Trace Ford played for Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
Transferred over. He's like a 6-year player.
Yeah, I'm breaking down the edges right now. Luckily, we have 2 weeks, so I can move much more slowly on these breakdowns, and it's nice to really be able to see. But R. Mason Thomas, real deal. So their pass rush is there too, so don't get it twisted. But they're going to send heat, and they're going to force themselves into man, and an experienced Quinn should be able to make them pay.
Cam Williams offsides over-unders?
That's the tricky part, right?
I'll set that at 1.5. You going to take the over or the under?
How many did he have last game? He leads the nation. He's the most penalized lineman, isn't he, in the nation?
He's the most penalized on our team. I know that.
Yeah, I think he's the most penalized in the nation.
Well, he had like 5 penalties against Michigan. So, yeah. That'll add to your tally.
I'll take under. I'll say he only has 1.
All right.
I believe in you, Cam. I believe in you, big guy. So, and then interesting here, really good. This is where, OU's real advantage is field position. They're 4th in the country in field position. And then they have a really good special teams. So, and Texas has worse special teams, which is interesting. We normally win that matchup, but defensive coach, right? So what I'm worried about specifically, Silas Bolden trying to make a hero catch. If it gets tight and we fumble and then they get the ball in the 5, that's a very OU way to win that game, especially with this team this year. So just be aware of that on special teams. And then ELS strength of schedule, 23rd ranked, and they're 68th in the country in penalties per game. And then we won't go through this because we don't have time, but here's the Texas numbers, and then I have all the advantages for Texas. Really, the only time where it's a problem is going to be the Texas rushing offense versus the OU rushing defense. That advantages OU.
That can come up in the red zone. And I think also third and short. Also, I think you have to look, OU is for ride or die guys. And I think we have to play that accordingly at running back in our backfield.
Yeah.
And I think we're looking for floor in our backfield against OU, not necessarily chasing some mythical ceiling that has not yet been realized this year. So if y'all are reading what I'm putting down, that means I want to see a lot more of Wisner and Gibson.
Yeah. So huge mismatch. Texas rushing explosivity is 103rd in the nation. OU rushing defense, 8th in the nation in stopping rushing explosivity. So this should be, we need to run. We need to be able to chisel away. We're not looking for that big breakthrough. But other than that, guys, it's not
that factoid guarantees that Trey Wisner breaks a 60-yarder.
Yeah, an OU game. So and then just so you guys can see it kind of visually prettier, right? This Texas wins 83% of the time.
That's with us. That's the home team, right?
I don't know who's home.
That site doesn't have neutral.
Yeah, I don't care about neutral. So yeah, it'll whatever the switch is. Either way, we're going to be solid. We're supposed to get 33 points. They'll get 20 points in this situation. So survive the big shots, but you can see Texas is pretty much all blue. OU is.
What's more likely, Texas gets 30 plus, or OU gets 20 plus?
I feel like what's more likely is Texas gets 30 plus. Because Sark is so inelastic. It doesn't matter the caliber of the defense he plays. He scores between 30 and 40.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. If you're, it's like Bama, whatever, Sark will find his 7 plays and he's going to score on them, So that's what I've always noticed is like Sark's scoring does not, and I've tried that data-wise. I've tried to match up defensive strength to our scoring output. There's no correlation there. Sark is like he's like, I'm going to score 7 times. I don't care who you are. So that's going to be the interesting thing. Homer Guy loves analytics. I think we kind of confuse some of this stuff. Like analytics is more predictive kind of stuff. These are just historical records of things that have happened. These aren't magical kind of numbers. So whenever we say their success rate, it's just how many times they move the ball forward. There's not some magical formula here. These are all things that occurred on the field. I think sometimes we think of analytics as like this magic formula. All this stuff is just historical data keeping of what occurred. Always do the eye test, watch every game, but eye test also has a lot of failures and biases. And so it's nice to just kind of see plainly what occurred on the field without my emotions being driven into it. All right. Texas by 21, quick touch first, then slow, but the passing game heats up late in the second. Yours 350 plus. Okay. Drew Kelson. Hard. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. You ready to talk games of interest?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to you unless anyone has any more Texas OU musings we need to touch upon.
Yeah, chat. Hit us up. I love that. Did you see who James' profile picture is?
No.
It's Ricky from Trailer Park Boys.
I've never watched Trailer Park Boys.
You never watched it? You should check it out. All right. If Texas wins the Natty, can we get Bobby and Eric to hug it out? Probably not. Thanks for the $5. All right.
For $5,000.
Yeah, maybe.
Put the money in.
Yeah. All right. So opponent games of interest. Not as cool as like Georgia, Alabama last week, but here we go. Stop sharing the screen real quick. Sorry about that. All right. Mizzou, Texas A&M. A&M 2.5-point favorites. I think that's interesting.
Very interesting. So Mizzou's coming off a bye.
Yeah.
Mizzou has not exactly been a rolling ball of butcher knives against any competition with a heartbeat. They struggled with Boston College. They struggled mightily with Vanderbilt. I think they went to overtime, right? So that's something worth watching. A&M, you guys kind of know what that is. I think they are starting to round into shape a little bit, at least against intermediate level opponents. It is in College Field, at College Station. Homer, you know the amazing advantage that place has.
Yeah.
We talk about it all the time.
Yeah, we can't prove it, but it's there.
But yeah, I mean, if Mizzou wants to be an SEC contender, this is they're ranked 8th in the country. It's silly, and I mean, it's their level of play has not lived up to that billing. So if they want to be treated seriously, they had a bye week to prep and prepare. They should go into College Station and be up 14-0 at the end of the first, right?
Yeah.
And have a bunch of stuff in their bag and a bunch of script, and then try to hold on. But if not, I mean, Mizzou, I think the part of Mizzou that's underappreciated is they lost 4 or 5 guys off that defense who were drafted in the NFL. And you're seeing that when they play teams with a pulse. So
Yeah.
I think A&M's just going to try to run the ball. And then I'm hearing rumors that they're going to try to play Wegman. I don't believe that is true. I think they've found their quarterback, and I think Wegman's on the shelf.
Are you touching this game?
No.
Cool. All right, Auburn, Georgia 24-point favorites.
Yeah, that line's been moving around a little bit. Everyone, this is when you get all the emotional handicaps where people have deep insight into the psyche of both teams. Georgia's going to be angry coming off that
Yeah.
bill. Auburn has got to be sick knowing what they gave away the game against OU. They're going to have a crisis of confidence. People do all this sort of stuff, and
Yeah.
it's just nonsense. Look, if Georgia plays and they show up, they should win. But I don't think actually Auburn's easy to blow out unless they just quit. I think they have some infrastructure of a good team. They have fatal flaws that keep them from winning. But
Yeah.
I do think they're a team that's difficult to just put it on. So again, not a game I'm touching. And I laugh at the psychological state handicapping that everyone's doing on these two teams.
I mean, Auburn cracks me up because they're surviving to the 10th round and they just get KO'd.
Yes.
You're watching them for the first 10. And I hate the arguments where it's like, well, they would be good besides the part where they're not good. I hate that.
Well,
but
it's the boxer who's winning on points.
Yeah.
Deep into the 8th or 9th round. You're like, whoa, we're watching an upset.
Yeah.
And then they just get
flatlined.
well, like the kind of knockout where you're halfway hanging over the ropes.
Yeah.
And
you
people
fall
are
out.
Yes. Like that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's pretty strange watching OU and Auburn. I was like, how do you mess that up at the end? But they found a way. Bless them. Bama, Vandy. So
yeah, Vandy's taking points taking bets in the market because they're scrappy. Diego Pavia has helped them discover their heart, and because Bama, look, they laid it all out on the line last week, and probably not going to be playing at their pinnacle on the road against Vandy. But if Bama can bring a solid 7 out of 10, they're going to win this game by margin, and then it's a question of backdoor covers.
Yeah, Alabama was not playing around with Georgia. I'm interested that game was incredible.
Kalen DeBoer, 6-0 against Steve Sarkisian, Dan Lanning, and Kirby Smart.
Yeah, people need DeBoer's a special guy, and I thought he was the right hire for Alabama. I'm probably going to be regretting that because he was the right hire for Alabama, but man, I like him as a coach. He's a good dude. All right. So Paul is definitely taking Vandy in the Alabama game because he loves their quarterback. Tennessee at Arkansas. This also should be fun too, right?
Yeah, that's a fun game to watch.
It will be.
Just because wide open offense. Arkansas knows they got to score a bunch of points to stay in this game, so they're going to take risks with Talon Green. And Talon giveth and Talon taketh away if you watch that guy play. Not quite as dramatically as like Peyton Thorne does, but in that neighborhood. I think Tennessee is going to win that game, and I think they're going to cover. I think they they have too much that they can do to the Arkansas defense to control that game, particularly in the first half. Arkansas doesn't have great corners and safeties. And frankly, they can stop the run, but they kind of need numbers to do it. And their defensive line is talented at Arkansas, I'm talking about, but they're not good pass rushers. So they actually kind of have to blitz to get pressure. And that starts to play into Tennessee's hands. And eventually Dylan Sampson's going to crease them on a run. And then I think Nico's going to be able to stand back and throw the ball around. So not a good matchup for Arkansas. That said, they might get some points on offense. Petrino's going to scheme it up, and we'll see.
You think Pittman makes it out of this year?
Doesn't look like it.
Yeah. Jeff Traylor, come on down. All right, opponent games of interest. Central Florida at Florida. Central Florida. I know, isn't that crazy? When I saw the line, I was like, oh, it's that bad.
Talk about two teams that could just no-show mentally, right? I mean, that's just wild. So, yeah, I will not be betting on that game, but I think you're going to see two teams trying to throw the game away. And whoever most wants to throw it away will successfully throw it away.
It's also wild just to see Florida. I know UCF is, was always a giant slayer, but to see a former G5 type versus the University of Florida, and Florida's not the favorite. Little sketchy there talent-wise. That's a bummer.
At Florida. That's wild.
Yeah.
And Colorado whooped them.
Yeah.
That was a surprising result for me.
Yeah, it's not going well for old Florida there, which is a bummer. But
who's going to be the Florida coach next year?
Deion Sanders.
No.
That would be the most PR. That'd be the most legendary PR move.
Well, because he's like feuding with Florida State right now as well, isn't he?
Yeah, but I don't know. I just think about Traylor. I only focus at Texas, so Traylor and then GJ Kinney. I'm like, who's getting Baylor? Who's getting Arkansas? That kind of thing. But nationally, do you think anyone would be cool? You think Lane? Are you on the Lane train? I'm down with it.
Yeah,
which I actually don't want to happen. As a fan, I do. As playing in that same conference, I do not. How much of the Bama Georgia game reminds you of a Red River game?
Yeah, that was wild. The swings, the lack of SEC defense down the stretch, right? Single throws going for 75 yards, and guys missed 3 tackles. But yeah, that was totally a wild, like the wildest Texas OU games where it's just all offense and they're just rolling up and down the field. Man, wild game.
A few years ago when I was at the Texas OU game where they came back, that was the most emotionally deflating thing I've ever been a part of. And then next year was 49-0. That was one of the most beautiful moments I've experienced in this world. But
it's a roller coaster. That's the nature of that game. And
I'm interested. I need to see Georgia and Alabama going forward because there was a lot of things like, man, that's exciting. Hey, this is 2 juggernauts. And there's some counterpoints that are like, or 2 teams not playing well in some regards. So I need to see kind of, hey, what do you think about this, Paul? So Bama takes the #1 spot. Fine with that. They have the best win, right? What if Texas is able to beat Georgia by a bigger margin? I think theoretically Texas should move up, but the AP poll voters are so dumb that they're going to be like, yeah, but Texas beat a 1-loss Georgia. It's like, it's the same team. Alabama just had to beat them earlier.
Well, the good news is the SEC is going to have a brutal little round robin, and we're going to find out because all these teams are going to play each other in different forms. And Georgia is the common opponent of all these teams.
Yeah.
Georgia's playing Tennessee. They already played Bama. They're playing Texas, and they're going to play Ole Miss. So Georgia is going to be the team by which everyone is measuring.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have the end of season where we're going to have freaking 5 teams that are 7-1, and then there's going to be some esoteric tiebreaker system that determines who plays for the team.
The committee is going to be like, this team's really tough.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say this: whatever team is probably left out of the SEC title game is probably the 5th seed in the playoff. So, we'll see.
Left out? No, because the first 4 are auto bids, right?
No, left out of the SEC title game. The SEC has the title game. 2 teams.
Yeah, but whoever loses the title game would get the 5th, right? because
It's
the
not auto.
champion's going to auto bid. It is. The first four are.
No. I know the first four are auto bid. But the loser, there's nothing that the SEC title game loser is guaranteed the fifth. What does that mean?
Well, I would assume they would take them as the best non.
No. What if it's Missouri that didn't play anyone and they luck into the title game just based on the tiebreakers?
Yeah, I think I'm assuming that the title game is going to be like Bama, Texas, Tennessee, Bama, or whatever, and the number two is going to be like.
We'll have to see. But I mean, if an unimpressive Ole Miss gets blown out in the title game, they're not the fifth.
Yeah, it will be kind of shaky though. I didn't even think about. I kind of just assumed everything went smoothly, and it was kind of a meritocracy, but it can get a little sketchy there.
Yeah,
that's going to be weird.
Plus, the committee is going to manipulate matchups. Like it's going to be like the Final Four. March Madness, where they're going to manipulate it so that Texas isn't playing 3 SEC teams in the playoff to win the title, right?
Well, if you want that fifth spot, if you're not auto bidding, because you're going to end up playing Boise State or whatever.
Yeah.
So that fifth spot's going to be valuable because you're pretty much going to be playing a G5 champion.
Although what's interesting is if you have the fifth spot, you then play the number 1 seed after you win against the G5.
Yeah.
So that's a weird setup too. They should have had it set up.
It's like strategic. Also, strategically, is it better to not be in the conference game?
Yeah, you might want to just be the 8th seed,
right?
That's
like be a really good 8th seed. Yeah, so it's like it's almost there's some issues here where it's like, do I even want to play in an SEC conference game and lose 3 players to injury?
So I love all the playoff ideas because it creates so much enmity and hate and resentment. I love the playoff idea of the top 4 seeds get a bye, and then they get to draft their opponent. They get to pick their opponent in the next round.
Yeah, I'm down for fun.
I think that's super fun because you're going to have one of these. Oh, you picked us, and then we came to your home field and blew you out. Good pick, good job. So
that's one way we can get the draft involved in college. But yeah, the playoffs isn't going to be interesting because, like you said, 8th seed might actually be where it's at. You don't necessarily want to play in the conference championship.
You ready to watch Iowa State take on Miami in a playoff game?
Yeah, but the coolest part is these home games. Like that's going to be incredible.
Yeah.
So it's going to be weird, but there's going to be a ton of beauty to the playoff process as well. And if you're like 11 and this is the first iteration of college football you're going to see, it's going to be pretty cool, man.
Yep.
All righty. Chat. Any final thoughts? If not, me and Paul will be leaving. And then, of course, we'll be back on at 9:30 a.m. tomorrow with the one and only Ian Boyd. And we will talk more schematics. I'm sure we're going to go more into the veer and shoot that we saw from Mississippi State. So it should be pretty exciting. But, Paul, thank you for your time. Fans, thank you for yours. Have a wonderful day. Hook 'em.